Get started. First, I'm just a little nervous and a little emotional, so if I tear up, bear with me. At least I now know I'm not the only one teary here today, which I'm grateful for. And I also just want to give a special shout out to Fred Coleman, because I came to Ojai in 2002 to interview for my job at Thatcher, originally as an English teacher and a coach. And I came from a school called Texas Military Institute in San Antonio. It's an incredible institution. Douglas MacArthur went there, and the school was founded when TMI was on the edge of the frontier and they needed a military presence in that area. And as my husband and I traveled the country, not a single soul had ever heard of Texas Military Institute, except for Fred Coleman. So I just want to thank Fred for being that kind person 20 years ago who nodded his head and said, oh yes, I've heard of that school when I was on my job interview at Thatcher. Thank you, Fred. Yeah. I'm also laughing because the Lions Club invited me to speak in December and I didn't have to wear these glasses, so a lot's happened in 3 months. Thank you so much for inviting me here today to speak to you about Ojai Ed. I so appreciate it. I have long admired the commitment of the Ojai Rotary Club to the Ojai Valley. Also in assisting students with Rotary Club of Ojai Education Foundation scholarship applications for over a decade, I can say with certainty that the funds you give support young people in our valley, and they are truly transformative for them. I had a young man last year who received one, and he's now at Hawaii Pacific University, thanks to a grant he got from the Rotary Foundation. So it's really meaningful. I'd like to start by taking you guys on a trip with me back in time. Come with me all the way back to 1937. In 1937 in Ojai, the Ojai Valley Inn had been open for 14 years. Highway 33 had just opened so people could travel to Rose Valley and the mountains beyond. And Frank Capra produced his Lost Horizons film, creating that Shangri-La vibe that Ojai has maintained ever since with his shot of the valley in the opening scenes of that film. More broadly in America, in 1937, just 15% of high school students went on to seek higher education. Most of them were from upper-class families. Fast forward with me to 1970, even with the surge in college attendance that was generated by the GI Bill after World War II, only 26% of middle-class workers had any kind of education beyond high school. Now come with me to today, in 2022, where 80% of good-paying jobs require post-secondary education, according to Georgetown University's Center for Education and the Workforce. Additionally, the wage gap between people who have bachelor's degrees and people with only a high school diploma has nearly doubled since the early 1980s. Studies show that workers who hold a bachelor's degree earn $864,000 more over their lifetime than a high school graduate. Add to this that people with college degrees are more likely to be satisfied with their jobs, are more likely to read to their children, are more likely to have health and retirement benefits, typically pay more taxes, are less likely to require government assistance, and are also healthier overall, and you start to see the importance and power of a college degree. After 12 years of working as the Associate Director of College Counseling at the Thatcher School, I left in 2019 to launch Ojai Ed. The mission of Ojai Ed is to help students of the Ojai Valley access higher education with a focus on first-generation college-bound students. I was inspired to make this decision after serving as a college coach for first-gen students in Austin, Texas, where I spent a year on sabbatical. There, I also developed a college and career counseling program for a charter school that served children who had witnessed or experienced domestic violence. These experiences opened my eyes to the vast need for more education and more one-on-one time for young people seeking a college degree. Here in our little valley, we have a tight-knit, warm community. We work to support and nurture our youth at every turn, whether it's in the art, the outdoors, or athletics. This room is filled with people who have given countless hours to enhancing the experiences of our children, and I hope that through the work that I'm taking on, I can be of service as well. I also want to thank the Ojai Unified School District for its unwavering support and partnership since the beginning of Ojai Ed, as their willingness to partner with me has really made all of this possible. Ojai Ed has two components. First, and perhaps most critically, a middle school program called Get Ready, which runs out of Matilaha Middle School. This program is specifically for students who would be first in their family to go to college. Matilaha's student population includes 50% of its students on free and reduced lunch. Additionally, as of the 2019 California State testing, which is the last testing available, 33% of students scored at or above the proficiency level for math, and 44% scored at or above the proficiency level for language arts and reading. For students to overcome these deficiencies, they must start in middle school to get where they need to go in terms of preparation for college. In the 2019-2020 school year, I had 28 students in the program when COVID hit. We were able to shift gears and function on Zoom, something I really credit our superintendent, Tiffany Morse, with. She had an incredible foresight to give our students one-on-one computer devices in the fall of 2019. I think for a rural school district of our size, the fact that our students have that in March of 2020 is truly incredible. We had our first Zoom session of Get Ready on April 1st, 2020. We were able to first meet in person on April 14th, 2021. A core 12 kids stuck with it for that entire year, showing up on Zoom every week. Some students rejoined once we could meet in person again. This past fall, I launched year 3 of the program with 15 students in attendance. The goals of Get Ready include helping students strengthen their study skills and their soft skills like public speaking, also to engage in long-term planning of their academic program, to educate students about how the choices they make in middle school affect their high school trajectory. In concrete terms, students in the program create vision boards, research colleges, and make presentations about them to the group, and they do 5-, 6-, and 7-year course planning. One of the most powerful aspects of Get Ready has been our Spotlight Speaker Series. We invite a first-generation college graduate to share their story with the students. This is extremely popular and really meaningful for the students to see all the paths that are available to reach college. Our first speaker way back in 2019 to launch this was Ojai's own Javier Ramirez, who many of you may know, who at the time was the principal of Matilaha. Ojai Ed continues for students past Get Ready into high school. As they move into high school, students meet with me for one-on-one sessions once every 4 to 6 weeks. In these conversations, we review academic progress, make to-do lists, talk about how to prepare for finals. That was really exciting recently because it was the first time our students in Ojai have had final exams for 2 years. Make longer-term plans for the summer. Talk about the importance of engaging in school offerings. Complete course planning to be sure students are Cal State and UC eligible, and eventually shift into managing the college process itself. To date, I have backed and filled at the high school level to gain students as I wait for the middle schoolers to progress into that high school level. This ultimately has led me to widen my mission to include students who may have a parent with a college degree. This is because the counselors at Nordhoff face tough numbers and do not have a lot of one-on-one time to dedicate to students. In the state of California, the counselor to student ratio is 900 to 1. We're actually lucky at Nordhoff, our ratio is lower than that. Also in our little valley, all of these students know each other. When they work together, there's a joie de vivre and a camaraderie that enhances the experience for everyone. This year's cohort of 9th graders, 9 of them began in that original year when they were in 7th grade. So it's exciting to start to see that progress. Last year, I assisted 16 students from Nordhoff. They enrolled in a wide range of schools from Ventura College to Union College in New York State, to UCLA and Cal State Channel Islands. In building a list and moving through the college process, we worked to create a range of options that will allow students and families to be as debt-free as possible once the degree is secured. The success of this program boils down to several key components: expertise, time, and cost. Since 2019, I've given approximately 800 hours to individual one-on-one counseling sessions and run over 40 middle school sessions of Get Ready. Additionally, one of the projects I'm most proud of spanned April of 2020 in the pandemic through May of 2021. As I watched my middle school students on Zoom in those early days of lockdown, most had to stay home to watch younger siblings as their parents were going to work daily. Fear of the virus meant extreme isolation so that their parents could continue working. I looked for something Ojai Ed could offer, and I asked any students interested to join me in a virtual book club. 8 students opted in. We named ourselves the Critics Club. Initially, I'd planned that the group would end at the end of the school year, but the students wanted to continue, so continue we did. Over those 12 months, we read 17 graphic novels. All of the books were free. I drove all over the valley delivering them to ensure that they had them on on time for our discussions. We met every Friday on Zoom in the afternoon, like clockwork. We invited guest lecturers. The students chose the next books. One student designed a logo that we turned into a sticker. The experience culminated in May of 2021 with a huge dinner in person at a restaurant. We received 3 videos of congratulations from authors who we had read. And those 8 students knew we had succeeded. We had persevered and hopefully stemmed a little bit of learning loss along the way. Now, as I evaluate the middle schoolers I'm currently working with, pandemic-related learning loss in mathematics is evident. As a result, I'm employing a professional math tutor who works with the middle school students once a week for a supplemental hour of personalized math instruction. We began in February of 2022, and I secured a grant to fund it. Phase 2 of this initiative will involve supporting the high schoolers in my program with small group instruction. This spring, students and family members from Ojai Ed have the opportunity to visit college campuses. This has been a long-time goal of mine, delayed by the pandemic. We will visit campuses from Cal State Northridge to Cal Lutheran to UCSB to Cal State Channel Islands to Santa Barbara Community College. All of this, the one-on-one meetings, the snacks for Get Ready, the books for Critics Club, the math tutoring, the college visits, come at absolutely 100% no cost for the students, all completely free. I want to pause and put the timing of the work that I'm doing in the context of some national trends that are going on in our country right now regarding higher education. A sharp and continuous decline in college attendance has been underway for the last decade, totaling a loss of 3 million enrollments, according to the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center. This has been exacerbated by the pandemic. 1 million of that loss has happened since the pandemic began. A host of reasons contribute to this drop over time. None of this will be a surprise to you, I'm sure. Declining birth rates, the immediate availability of jobs in the job market right out of high school, and skepticism about the importance of college itself. Since the onset of the pandemic, the losses in enrollment are steepest from students who come from the lowest socioeconomic groups in our society. A brief glance at the national statistics for the fall of 2020 revealed the pandemic effect in stark relief. Immediate enrollments to college from high school dropped 4 to 10 percentage points, depending on high school categories, with disproportionately large drops among high poverty or low income high schools. This, despite the fact that attaining a college degree remains one of the best levers to move from one socioeconomic group to another. Another side note I'd like to add here, studies have shown that students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds benefit from what we often think of as a name school. This is because students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds benefit the most from the tight social network that comes with attendance at a school like USC or UCLA or Yale. Wealthier students from the upper class arrive at those schools with the support of that powerful network already in place. And yet, when we examine the data from the College Board, and this was just released in the last 3 days, the largest engine for college applications in the United States, a majority of applications submitted in this cycle, 56%, come from the top quintile, the top 20% economically of our society. 56% of applications coming from the top 20% economically in our society. So how does all this relate to our small community here? Over the last 2 years, I have watched these trends affect our students as they make choices about their future. Every single senior I work with now, I have 17 seniors from Nordhoff, and these students hail from across the socioeconomic spectrum of our valley, has applied for and gained a job since the onset of the pandemic. Most initially did it to fill empty time, but as they returned to high school in person this fall, their employers enticed them to stay because of labor shortages. One student has steadily worked 30 hours a week, a block down from here at the farmer and the cook, while also maintaining an AP heavy course load at Nordhoff. Another works weekends at the restaurant Mandala to help fund their family's needs. At the heart of all their decision-making is economics. I cannot tell you how many times I suggest something, be it attending a summer program to enhance extracurriculars, to take an extra standardized test, to add an extra college application. And the first question a student asks me is, how much does it cost? They learn from a very early age that this is a barrier they must consider first. The work I'm doing bears the same results that all educators experience, that of delayed gratification. I'm sure there are those in this room who know what I'm talking about. When a person embarks on a career of teaching, they cannot know how their work will affect a student. It may be decades later when they run into a former student in the grocery store or a letter arrives in the mail. Investing in our youth takes a commodity that is often in short supply, time. It takes routine, regular, continuous repetitions of all sorts, from literacy to good humor, to food, to maps and globes, to microscopes and verb conjugations. It takes continuously signaling to young people that they matter. Students who began and Get Ready in the fall of 2019 as 6th graders will graduate from college in 2030. In the meantime, I hope to support them along the way, and I encourage you to join in the work. In our valley, there is ongoing, continuous need to support our young people with extracurricular activities, job shadowing, mentoring, the list goes on. I encourage you all to stop by your neighborhood school, to thank the administrators and the teachers who are doing critical work with our young people, and to offer to lend a hand. Ojai has always been a place of community, a town I often describe to others as hyper-local. We often find ourselves discussing national issues on a micro scale, from short-term rentals, or the development of the downtown property, or climate change. Always with great passion and great rigor. Let's embrace the future of our youth with the same intensity.
Wow.
Questions? Yes.
Get that.
Just yell it out.
The microphone.
Thank you. Thank you, Dirk. You guys helped both my kids. They're succeeding because of the care you guys put in. I work with children also. A lot of us here do this group of people. You know, you're preaching to the choir, but it's so beautiful to hear your devotion and your commitment, and people are all in tears with you right there. Couple questions. First of all, thank you for what you're doing. Secondly, how is it funded? Is it through the school district? Is it through Thatcher? Are you volunteering? Is Thatcher subsidizing? Because I know Thatcher's doing a leadership thing at Nordhoff.
Yeah, so I literally just started this.
Could you repeat the question into the mic?
So the question was, how is this funded and how is this happening? So I literally just started doing it in 2019. God bless my husband for just saying, I guess he knows after all these years, the best answer was yes. So I just dove into this and I started in 2019. You know, a lot of the time I give is just my own time. So, you know, it was easy to give that. And I feel that when one undertakes these kinds of endeavors, it's really important to be humble. And I really felt that I needed to prove myself to the people in the Ojai Unified School District that I was serious and I was going to keep showing up. And I felt that at the point at which I felt I needed money, that I would be able to articulate what I was doing already, because I would have already been doing it. So initially I just started in 2019. Everything I did was self-funded. And then really it was with the book project with the kids. I was able to get a sponsor to help cover the cost of the books, but that was the first time I felt like, I think it's kind of time to tip the scales towards becoming a nonprofit, because and because things had been delayed. Like, I knew I would need money to take kids to visit colleges, but then I just all of a sudden couldn't for about a year. So I started, there's a great law firm in town, the Sustainability Law Group, that works with tiny little people like me, and they helped me really tremendously to become a nonprofit, and I became a full-blown nonprofit in July. You know, the other thing I've learned along the way is that there's trade-offs, right? Like, when you're doing it all yourself, you don't have to worry about insurance, although maybe I should have been worrying about insurance, but you know, there's fewer things to kind of hinder you. So it's been interesting as I've become a nonprofit. And then I was able to launch and ask for donations in November of 2021. And I just had a really successful first ask that's all of a sudden now I have a small budget. And that's been really exciting. So it's just been a very organic, self-grown thing that's just progressed over time. Mm-hmm.
Good.
Any other questions? Yes.
I've read that fewer boys are going to college and a lot more girls or women. So I'm curious what the gender breakdown is with the students that you're working with.
Oh, that's a good question. I definitely...
It's so the Zoom people can hear you.
The question was how gender breakdown, the idea that more girls are going to college than boys. That's definitely borne out in my program. I have about 47 kids in the high school program right now, grades 9 through 12. I'd say about a third are boys and the rest are girls. So I definitely see that in my own work, and same in my middle school program. I have 15 students, 5 boys, 10 girls. And so it's something that I think educationally speaking, I as someone who's been in schools now for 25 years, I've heard that and definitely seeing that in my work. Interestingly, what happens though in the college admissions pool is it becomes significantly more difficult for girls to get into college because colleges are working so hard to keep a gender balance in their incoming classes. And so sometimes schools will have, 2/3 of their pool will be girls, but they're only going to have 50% of their incoming class. So, and I would say, I started in college counseling in 2007. That idea that it's harder for girls to get in has actually been in place as long as I've been doing work in the college landscape. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Our Ed Foundation has had a goal to reach out to children, families that have never been to college. How do you work with the career and college counselors at Nordhoff to get these students identified early enough?
So Brianna Beebe is a college and career counselor at Nordhoff, and she's really wonderful to partner with. Brianna does a lot of boots on the ground work, makes herself really, really available to students. And, for me, it's really just been word of mouth of how I have found students, and then also at Matilaha with the support of last year Chris Murphy and first Javier, then Chris Murphy, Kelly Stone. These principals have been really great about sending out my flyer. I try to do everything I can in Spanish and English because we have a large Spanish-speaking population, parent population also. That's really helpful, is making sure everything's in both languages. So I'm not sure I have a specific answer, but I can say that Brianna at Nordhoff does a great job, as do the other counselors, Bronwyn Cole-Michaels and Kelly Friedland and Carly Feuderon. The kids know them and they go to them. And I've had multiple conversations with Brianna, and she'll send a kid my way. Nordhoff also let me do drop-in hours this fall, and that was really helpful because I was able to be on campus for 3 hours at a time, and any student in the whole senior class at Nordhoff who wanted assistance could come in and get help with essays. So we're just trying, you know, and part of this is building back to in-person things after so long of not. So just kind of trying to do what we can to raise awareness and availability.
Thank you.
So what do you need most now? What would you, here we all are.
Yeah.
What would be your thing that you would need most? People, money, space?
The thing I need most is money, because what I want to do next is be able to build a really good fund that I think of as maybe, I call it sometimes in my own head a summer fund, and I call it sometimes an emergency fund for those kinds of things I talked about. Two things happen for kids. So one, I'm just going to back up 1 sec. Extracurriculars are really critical for kids when they apply to college. There are 20 spots on a UC application for extracurriculars. There are 9 on a common application. So colleges expect to see kids deeply engaged with whatever their passions are. For kids in the class, this class, 2022, when you look at their extracurricular list, it's like they fell off a cliff in 10th grade. So it's really interesting because last year's seniors weren't as affected by the pandemic, but this year's seniors, just 1 year, you can see a big difference. You know, swam in 9th and 10th grade, nothing. Water polo, 9th and 10th grade, nothing. And what I'm seeing happening for our younger kids in this valley is we've had the collapse of some other pretty fundamental extracurricular opportunities. I don't know how many people here either coached or had a kid go through the Ojai Rec Basketball League, or spent a Saturday morning in the gym, or as my boys did, 8 hours on a Saturday because it was the place to be. But you know, our Ojai Rec Basketball League is not functioning. We're back to having 2 different little league organizations, which is sometimes difficult for our little community to sustain. So when those extracurricular opportunities start to dry up, kids aren't going to develop those passions the same way. And so that's something that's on my mind a lot, is like, I want to be able to fund the kids to go do a ceramics class if that's what they want to do at the middle school level, or give them the supplemental money they need to register for something through the rec center, or those little gaps, because I kid you not, I mean, right now I'm trying to get kids to go to a free opportunity this summer, and the first question a 6th grader is asking me is, does it cost money? And so I want to have a summer fund so that I can just, you want to do this? Okay, go. You know, just not going to worry about the money. Or if they apply for financial aid for something because they need financial aid and there's a gap, we can fill the gap. So that's my next thing, is I want to be able to build that fund. I think you should apply to this extra college. It's an extra UC campus beyond the 4 you're going to get for free with a fee waiver. No worries, we'll fund it. You know, I want to be able to say those things to kids, and I can't right now.
Thank you.
No, I just. The Zoom people, right here. So right now, how much money do you want for the summer fund this year? 1,000, 2,000, 10,000?
3,000.
Okay.
Just tangible.
Yeah.
He's going to write a check here.
He is. That kind of took the air out of him.
Is this thing working? All right, it's, this is a comment. Does Rotary have a satellite club? We have satellites because if we do, you should be one.
Yeah.
You should be our satellite. And if we don't, let's make a satellite thing where we can connect to people. This is brilliant what you've done.
Oh, thank you.
It is.
You know, it says educator on it, so we'll talk later. This is brilliant what she's doing. This is what we're all about on the scholarship committee. Let's make a satellite program for Rotary. There's so many organizations like this. What does that mean? I don't know, but I volunteer.
Oh, thank you. I want to say one other thing. I know you guys do the kids call it RILA at Nordhoff, the youth, and I just want to really encourage you to keep your eye on that. And I worked with a senior last year who received, she was the only, this is what I talk about with the kids all the time, is opportunities. Just say yes, just try the opportunities that are at hand. She was in 9th grade. She was the only student willing to apply for the RILA summer program. She did it. It catapulted her leadership into a totally different place. She put that to work for 3 years at Nordhoff, doing all kinds of amazing things with their community service programs and in their athletic programs. She wrote a fabulous essay about it, and she goes to UC Berkeley now. So good job, Rotary Club, because those kinds of opportunities make a difference for our kids.
Anything else? More questions?
Jack. We got one more question.
Cut the hugs. Use the mic.
Mr.
I
Warren.
noticed that a lot of the colleges now are not requiring or using the SAT scores. Do you have an opinion about that?
Yes.
Is it good
So,
or is it bad?
yes, so this is so interesting. So there's two things going on right now with standardized testing. The first is that the University of California and the California State Universities are now what's called test blind. Initially, when the pandemic hit, they decided to go test optional. They were taken to court, and they were, the people who took them to court won the lawsuit. And they literally, the University of California system and the Cal States may not accept standardized testing. So then a second camp is the idea of being testing optional. And just to give you an example, I've worked with 34 seniors over the last 2 years from Ojai. To give you a sense of how difficult it's been for kids to even take the test, I have 2 out of 34 who had a score. Okay, so it's been really difficult for kids to take a standardized test. So I am a big proponent of letting go of testing, provided that kids' transcripts are really, they're gonna have the time and the space they need in school to shine in the classroom. Because when you take away standardized testing, the transcript becomes much more weighty. And one of the things that's been hard for kids the last 2 years, right, is that testing piece got taken out from under them. They were halfway through their high school career with an idea that they'd test, and all of a sudden they couldn't, and the rigor of their transcript became exponentially more important. And that was really hard on some kids because they hadn't taken a program with that in mind. So the conversations I'm having about rigor are really different than a counselor would have necessarily had a few years ago, because rigor becomes that much more important. And so then what starts to happen is, how many AP classes is the public high school offering? How many honors classes is the public high school offering? And how many kids are actually making it into those tracks? That becomes exponentially more important. I mean, like, I don't know how many of you are following what's going on at UC Berkeley, but yesterday we found out that UC Berkeley is going to have to cut 5,000 more admissions out of this class because of a lawsuit that's going on up there. You know, so for our California kids to make headway at our own institutions, we as a community need to really engage with what's going on for them educationally if testing is not going to be a part of the equation.